To start off, I think that Black Skylands is a great game made by Hungry Couch Games, and with its continued support by the devs, I think that it'll be made even better over time. So I will say that I recommend the game for anyone that is interested. If you wish to hear more about it, then continue this video. Black Skylands is a top-down game that incorporates land and air combat in a steampunk, floating island setting while following the story that is currently unfinished as of making this video of Eva as she becomes the leader of a war against the Falcons. Starting out as child Eva, we would see a series of events that happened way before the main gameplay that causes a large divide between the Earners and the Falcons. As time went on and more firepower was made to fight a common enemy, the Swarm, the role of managing the firepower was left onto the Falcons. Eventually, the Falcons betrayed the trust of all other factions and fired the heavy machinery that they made to fight the Swarm onto the main home base, leading to where we are now. We go around and regain the islands that the Falcons captured to use as their own, leading the forefront of the war. I would say that the story is a bit bland because it really does not go into depth about many of the characters, mostly just saying that they are bad guys that need to be defeated and that they believe that they're doing the right thing while we are doing the wrong thing. But enough of the story, how is the gameplay? Starting off with the aerial gameplay, the first thing is the movement of the ship itself. It's not really something too bad, and I do like how it is. Speed up and slow down, left, right. And then there's a speed boost that you can do that would almost instantly speed up your ship to max speed, and then some, while also lowering the amount of maneuverability you have. There are also air highways with the latest major update, giving way to make it easier to travel around the territory. So overall, the movement is not too bad for the ship, and I don't really have any complaints towards it. While the movement of the ship itself is quite decent, the movement of you on your ship is quite annoying. Most of the time I'm struggling to be able to fix something, and then I also accidentally open the hull too many times while in desperate situations. I kinda wish that the hatch of the hull was further away, let us say, off to the side and further away from the wheel. Now with the gameplay of the ship weapons, I do enjoy the latest update, at least the one of writing this video, adding new things to the ship, such as the volley cannons and the front gun. I enjoy not having to spend most of my ship's ammo on the smaller things or things with little to no health, because I can just take care of it with my front gun that uses no ammo. With the volley, I really enjoy it and it adds a good bit of gameplay compared to before, where the side guns were all you had. You can mount all different types of weapons on your ship as well, and it is up to you what you want, whether it is a nice spray of bullets or a beefed up shot that is slower and more impactful. This is true for both the volley guns and the main gun, but the main difference is that the volley guns also have an option of how much you want to focus the guns, with the most focused guns being able to point directly at a single point, and the least focused ones being able to all point in a single direction. The weapons of the ship are quite refined, and I think that the aerial gameplay in that sense is not too bad. Now, onto the ship customizations. Almost every customization has two separate versions for every tier, a heavy one and a lighter one. The heavier ones offer a slight performance increase overall to the ship, but you can really only have a limited amount of heavier ones before your ship becomes too heavy to fly anymore, with the game stopping you from even making the customization to begin with. There's a balance to everything, and if you want to use the better things, that comes at a cost. But the thing is that there is not much difference between the heavier thing and the lighter one, so it will not kill you if you do take the lighter one. I think the ship's customizations are quite balanced, but I do feel like there is something missing that gives it the extra variety to make truly specialized ships. The last thing I want to talk about on the ships is the one that's the least notable, which is the ship's ability, as it's not really easy to use most of the time. I only have experience with the impulse shield, which deflects all projectiles in the radius of its pulse. The main reason why I say that it's the least notable is because I just find myself forgetting to use it most of the time. So while it is there, I just don't use it because it feels pretty situational and I can't really see myself using it more than just a good couple of handful times. I would like more variety in the abilities, but I do understand that they're just implemented when I wrote the script, so I'm looking forward to more ship things to come. Overall, the ship's gameplay is pretty nice, and I think that it does need some improvements on some parts. I say that it's still being worked on when I'm writing this script, and I hope to see it developed further. But well, that's enough about the ship. Let's move on to the land gameplay, starting off with the movement. You have running, which makes your character move faster while also stowing away your weapon. This is a nice balance since you are able to go significantly faster than before, so it makes sense that you will stow your weapon. The next thing to talk about is the grapple. This is both a weapon and a tool that you use to traverse large gaps and melee people with. The grapple is something that is quite necessary to use since the islands have gaps in them that would otherwise be impossible to traverse. You can also pull smaller enemies towards you to melee them, and you can also go up to people and melee them with the melee key. There is also an option to sneak behind people. If you look very closely, you can see the view radius of some of the characters, which is a slight red semicircle that is very hard to spot. While it is possible to sneak around, it is not really the best option since they turn around too fast anyways for you to react, and also the instant you hurt one, everyone else is alerted. So if you cannot one-shot them, then it is not really viable to sneak. One thing that does help is the grapple mentioned earlier, where you can melee people who are far away by grappling them and pulling them towards you. So those are all the movement things for land battle. Overall, not too bad. Now for the weapons. I already mentioned the grapple, so I'll really not go into more depth into that. But there are multiple weapons that you are able to choose and make work, with a combination of 3 that you can have equipped at one time. The weapons are just about the usual ones. You got the shotguns, snipers, assault rifles, SMGs, and then the special types. The usual classes work like many other games. Shotguns have a spread, SMGs shoot fast but have low range, assault rifles shoot slower but have more punch and more range. Rifles go even further, and then sniper rifles are long-range bullies that have high accuracy if you aim it. Every weapon has its modifiers that change some aspects about the gun. It is mostly just stat changes. You know, how fast the gun shoots, crit modifiers, and also the damage. You know, the usual stuff. There are some of them that give the gun some extra thing, but they're not game breaking, and it all just matters on how you want to play the game. The guns seem pretty balanced, though I will say that because of the camera FOV, I do not really use the snipers and rifles so much, so there is that. So that is most of the combat related stuff. Now onto the more passive part of the game, which is the looting. This game is not a survival game, so there is no need to worry about food and stuff, but you do need to collect things to upgrade yourself. Otherwise, you'll just be making life much harder if you don't try to collect as many things as possible whenever you go away from the main base. While going out to the islands, you can also make your moth pick up things and bring it back to your ship. This speeds up things so you don't have to go back to your ship carrying one thing each time. Tell your moth to pick the things up so it's all back in your ship when you get back. The moth also has the ability to pick you up as well, so you can quickly travel to your ship. One of the best upgrades you can get for your ship is the hull upgrade, just because of how much you'll be filling it up. And especially because you will have at least 2 slots already taken up by your fuel and ammo for the ship. So that is everything with looting and combat. Let us talk about the unlocks of the game. I do feel quite annoyed at a good bit of this. So one of the main things is the ship volley cannons. Some of them are behind a progression gap where you have to get some of the items that are rarely only attainable in a higher level area. Makes sense. But the thing is that these cannons do have different characteristics. I would much prefer that most of these ones are offered to me at the beginning of the game so that I can upgrade them rather than them being locked behind a progression gap that I cannot really jump past. The main gripe that I have with this system is locking the actual guns behind the gap is that the resources that you use are pretty scarce to begin with, and you really have to spend it if you want to find out if you like it or not. Yes, you can get it back, but you really feel like you would have used those materials somewhere else. Especially if the material came from a harder difficulty area that makes it a bit harder to harvest the things that you want. I think that having the guns available at the very beginning and then being able to upgrade them gives way for people to test out the guns before they want to invest more rarer materials into them. But I will say it does make sense in one aspect of the game where the materials are scarce to begin with. There's a limited amount on the map and buying it is quite expensive, so it would make sense to make the weapons more spread out on the resources rather than spending all the scarce starter resources trying to figure out what guns you wish to figure out using. But the devs can also just increase the amount of starter resources on the map. Either way, there are benefits and drawbacks to both ways of doing things. With most of the story done, you are able to go on raids, which is essentially a little dungeon that makes you go through a series of events to get to the end of the fight the boss. Although some of it is random, overall it does the same thing, and so I think that it gets repetitive a little quickly after a good couple of runs. But even though it does get repetitive, it is something to do once you're completely done with the story, and it is a bit challenging, especially with how tanky the enemies are. But that mostly just encourages people to do the actions told to them rather than fight the enemies, when the objective is not to kill the enemies, of course. Well, I think that is enough of me explaining every major thing in the game in quite some detail. I think the rest is up to you whether or not you want to get the game and play it on your own. Overall, I think the game is pretty good feature-wise, but does lack a bit in the story. But it does say that it is still being developed, so I'm looking forward to it in the future. I find it funny that you're able to make it so your ship uses zero fuel, so it practically just runs on nothing at all, making it so you do not have to refuel and keep fuel tanks in your ship at all time. This does come with a cost, obviously, most notably with my configuration at least. I had to give up my precious hull space and put a smaller hull into my ship to achieve it. So it's mostly nice if you're in a situation like the raid where you do not really need it and have to do something else with the ship that requires long use. I did notice some typos playing the game, but it is currently lost in a sea of footage that I'm way too lazy to find. If you wish to do so, you can comb through all my VODs if you are that desperate to find them. But, yeah. I do enjoy the lore sprinkled out. I do wish that there was a system to make it so that it was easier to find them all. Like a scientist on the main ship giving hints like on what island it is on and what region of that island as well. I hope that you guys have enjoyed this video, and I hope that you guys have a good night, day, or wherever you are.